Sean Meyers now joined by Matt Humbert, the head coach of the Belle Vernon area Leopards, as they punch their ticket to Heinz Field, a 21-7 victory against Thomas Jefferson in the 4A semifinals last week. Matt, I know that you've guided a team to Heinz Field before playing for a championship. That has to be very exciting. But something that you haven't done is defeat Thomas Jefferson in the playoffs. Rivalry goes back many years. What was the feeling like to get to the championship again, to defeat Thomas Jefferson in the process?
Kind of like a bittersweet feeling with TJ, for the simple fact that unfortunately there's just not much time to really think about it and enjoy it, because the more you win, the bigger the game is on the horizon. So, it was kind of a neat to beat them twice, and I think a lot of people kind of maybe doubted us being able to do that, and it's understandable to a certain degree because they're a great football program and they're hard to beat in November. But bittersweet in the sense that wasn't really the objective. The objective, we didn't try to make the TJ game bigger than it was. It was never about beating them twice. It was about beating whoever in the semifinals to get to Heinz Field. So just one of those things where I hate to say it, we just didn't really sit back and kind of waste too much time thinking about that win, just because you really don't have the luxury to do that, because you got to get ready for this game this week. But we're very grateful, and we're very excited to be playing in the WPIAL Championship.
You've gone against Thomas Jefferson many times, regular season and certainly in the playoffs. What was different this year as opposed to past years that allowed you to defeat them twice?
That's tough. I think, we got a well-balanced group of kids. We got a lot of different pieces in different places. On the line, we're not the biggest and the most measurable base team, but we got a lot of kids that are tough. I think we got a solid amount of skill kids in terms of our defensive secondary, our linebackers, our receivers. But then with that being said, when you got a kid like Quentin Martin and you got a kid like Devin Whitlock, that really helps you out a lot. But the nice thing is it's not really the Devin Quentin show, is because there's a lot of complementary pieces around them. And I think they complement Devin's skill set and Q's skill set well. So it was just, it was gratifying to have an overall team win on Friday, and really nice for our defense to truly rise to the occasion. Our defensive secondary, Quentin had probably 4 pass breakups and an interception, and then our defensive line and linebacking core, who really swarmed to the ball and did a great job.
Well, you're talking about the defense. That was going to be my next question as well, because you gave up 20 points against Newcastle. You gave up a significant number of yardage. You did create the turnovers against the Red Hurricanes, but against Thomas Jefferson, it really seemed like it was an even more dominant performance from the defense. What really stood out?
I just think the aggressive play with our defense. We wanted to be aggressive, and the kids really kind of sold out on that. I thought the D-line played really well, especially against that huge offensive line. And I think our coaches did a great job with, taking some chances and doing a couple different things that would put our best kids on their best kids, and, being aggressive with the game plan. So I think it was just an overall great program win.
I'm sure you're aware of this. The 21 points that you scored was actually a season low in the semifinals, but you got 2 early touchdowns and then were able to kind of use that to your advantage. How big was that to get off to the good start?
Really it was, and the key, was TJ likes to take shots deep early on, and we just wanted to make sure that we withstood those first few drives, and we were able to accomplish that. We were able to get the lead going at halftime, but that was never a comfort. You knew that they're capable of scoring at any moment. So the goal was to get them to punt, and they did. And, it was nice to have the ball after half to be able to try to get that. Devin was able to score in 2 plays, and the line did a great job blocking it up for him. The receivers did a great job blocking it up. So we were just proud of the way that the offense played. And TJ, ironically, did some different things defensively. You sit back and you look at all the preparation you had, and then them to come out in a couple different defensive looks. I was proud of the way the kids and the coaches were able to adapt on the fly and try to make some positive alignments and some negative ones to come with it.
Talking to Matt Humbert, the head coach of the Belle Vernon area Leopards, before his team's 4A championship game against the Aliquippa Quips. So take me through Friday night, West Mifflin High School, the reaction of your players after the final whistle there on the field, and then maybe in the hours that followed.
It's tough, man. It goes by quick, right? You get that victory, and it's kind of like a whirlwind. I think, the biggest thing is it was neat to see the kids' excitement. It was neat to see the coaches' excitement to be able to get back to that field. I feel like it's been a 2-year struggle to get us back there. It was, like I said, it was kind of bittersweet because, you can't really enjoy it too much. They were able to enjoy it in that moment, but then they had to flip the page because, unfortunately, you don't get to carry over any defensive stops and points from that game. You got to get ready for Aliquippa, and Aliquippa is such a storied franchise that the WPIAL championship is just another game to them, really, if you think about it in the history of the program. So just excited to see those kids achieve something that not a lot of people would have thought they would have achieved. And just to be able to do it with a very business-like approach. They were all excited and pumped, but it wasn't anything over the top. I just think that they had faith. They had belief. And they should have. There's no reason why they shouldn't. But it was just neat to be able to see them have that confidence and that confidence able to propel them.
Going back to your regular season finale in which the conference title was on the line, the last 3 teams you went against, McKeesport, Newcastle, Thomas Jefferson, and now your upcoming opponent, Aliquippa. I'm not sure that there's a more historic group of 4 teams you can play consecutively. I know that you really focus on the team that you're going up against any individual week, but do you ever think about the legacy of the programs you've defeated over the past handful of weeks and the one in front of you on Saturday as well?
We think about it all the time. And just from the simple fact that they're big games and they're tough competition. And then just to think of us being able to handily defeat a Penn Trafford team who's playing in the WPIAL championship a class above us. And then, you think of LH, they were 5-0 and we were 5-0. That was a big game. So, McKeesport, man. Their story just like Aliquippa was. So there's been no shortage of us playing tough competition this year. And, the kids and the coaches understand that. I don't know if that gives us any type of momentum or whatnot, but I know that, the kids won't be rattled in the game at the stadium with the yellow seats because, I feel like every other week we're playing in a big, meaningful game. And that's just, it's been such a neat, special thing this year, to be able to play in those games where the attendance is through the roof and, there's always something at stake, right? And the next game is bigger than the previous one. So I'm hoping that'll benefit our kids, come this weekend.
Aliquippa was in the news this week, not just for getting to another championship game, which is an incredible feat, but for the fact that they potentially could leave the WPIAL if they get asked to move up to 5A. Now, it's worth noting that they are a 1A team by enrollment, so they've done an incredible job competing here in 4A. When you look at them and the fact that they knocked off McKeesport in a 1-score game last week, what really stands out about this team and about the program?
Well, I just think the number one thing I'll always sing their praises is because I know firsthand they don't give up. There's a little bit of psychological warfare sometimes when it comes to athletics, and especially football. If you can come out and throw some punches, if you can come out and dominate the line of scrimmage, if you can come up and get up a few scores, not all, but some teams will quit. Boy, they show no sign of that at all, and I lived that. We got up on them early last year, and they just clawed their way back in, and then eventually beat us. The thing that I take away from McKeesport is, those just kids never quit, they never give up. And I think that's just a kind of a common mantra within that program's history. So it's a unique opponent because you're playing, TJ has all of the accolades and they're the juggernaut over the past 20 years, especially at the 4A level. But man, Aliquippa just has that tradition, that history that dates back, decade after decade after decade. So the thing that stands out in the McKeesport game was a good indicator of that is it doesn't matter what it is, they will fight till that last second on the clock.
You're familiar with Aliquippa from the playoffs last year, but one player they did not have is their freshman running back Hayes, and he has really burst onto the scene, closing in on 1,400 yards despite being a backup at the beginning of this season. What do you see from him on film?
Just kind of what we've seen out of the kid last year and what we see out of talented tailbacks is he's the real deal. He has the toolbox. He's physical, he's fast. He's good in space. He can shed tackles. So, he's just a guy that you got to account for. But, we've played against some good running backs this year. Look at McKeesport, look at PT, look at some of those schools that we went up against. They've had good tailbacks. We've played against, they're a very big line, but we've played against big lines. Newcastle had a big line. TJ had a big line. PT DVT had a big line. So it's one of those things where we're just hoping that our experience and our resume of different offenses and defenses that we've seen over this year will prepare us for this game, right? Because everything you do is preparing you for that final game in your regular season. So you got to have a hat on. You got to make sure that you're minimizing your open field tackles with the kid, and you got to just try to make sure that you're avoiding making lanes for him to hit.
Their defense looks pretty dominant as well, 4 shutouts throughout the season. So what stands out about the Quips defensively?
Very similar to last year. They're aggressive. I mean, that's the biggest thing that stands out. They love to send two, plugs inside with their linebackers. They keep their outside backers on the edge to try to cause and disrupt and create some havoc on the perimeter. And then they got 3 big guys. They got 3 guys that are on the D line that are just space eaters. And when they're in their 3-4, they jump to their 50 front. Those guys are people that just kind of take up those gaps and they engulf it, and they take up that space to kind of make you kick the ball different places that you want. So very similar to last year. Aggressive linebacker play, aggressive defensive back play, and 3 guys up front that really kind of hunker things down.
Biggest keys to victory?
I just think that we got to be able to move the ball early and quick. I think last year we got off to that, and then I think that they, kind of adapted a little bit and kind of were able to do some things to prevent some of the things that we were doing. So the key is we got to be consistent with it. We got to be able to, take what they give us and keep at it and keep moving. We can't turn the ball over. We turned the ball over a couple times last year, and that was tough for us. And then also we got to make sure that on a defense that we're very balanced to complement their balancedness. I think that the challenge that Aliquippa poses offensively is they're just so balanced. I mean, there's games where they live in 21 personnel and 22 personnel, and they run the football every other play. And then there's games where they come out in 3-by-1 and 2-by-2, and they throw the ball all the time. So, the key is us being multiple to combat their multipleness on offense.
And lastly, it is always special when your team advances to a championship, especially a marquee matchup against a historic opponent like Aliquippa. But what does this mean, not just to the players and the coaches, but to Belle Vernon area as a whole?
Well, I think anytime your team makes it that far, the community kind of enjoys and shares that. So I just think I don't know what it means. I just know there's a heck of a lot of pride there. I think one thing that we always tell kids, and especially when you're successful, there are people that this is all they talk about. There are people that plan their week, grown adults that don't even have kids that play for the program, that plan their week around that Friday night game, that Saturday afternoon game. So, I think that's the special part of it, is that there's a lot of support. There's a lot of people that are happy to see. There are a lot of people that are happy to see the success we had over the past 5 years, but to get back there and with the hopes of possibly bringing back that second WPIAL championship in program history, it's a great time for our community. But you know what? We got to kind of keep our nose to the grindstone, and we got to go out and finish.
Matt, thank you so much for taking the time. Congratulations for getting to Heinz Field. Good luck on Saturday.
Appreciate you guys.
That's Matt Humbert, the head coach of the Belle Vernon area Leopards.